Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on, it's another international break, but we're going to bring you some amazing bonus content on the Albion Obsessed podcast. We do think of the viewers and the listeners, so here we go. We've got an episode for you. Well, I am joined by Dagan. Dagan, how are you?
Hey, great, Joe. Happy Saturday, though there's no football, which makes it a less happy Saturday. That's all right.
So
Were
there
yours,
was no.
Dave?
I did go to the Amex today and watched the Albion women beat West Ham 3-2. So I did get my football fix. So I'm very happy about that. As you mentioned, Dagan, we are joined by author of Brighton and Hove Albion on this day, turned film star, by the way. We've got Dan Tester. Dan, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. As I say, turned film star. I watched the documentary yesterday. It was absolutely incredible. You told me that you haven't watched the full edit yet. I strongly recommend you do. You're probably watching it now.
I've watched the first edit, which was last year before the Athens away game. And I know it's been tweaked a little bit to include, obviously, the end of the European tour. So, yeah, I've not seen the new one yet. So I'm looking forward to it.
Fair enough. No spoilers, although we do know that Brighton do get into Europe, so that's fine. As I say, author of Brighton and Hove Albion on this day. It's the third edition, but it is a new book. Dan, tell us about Brighton and Hove Albion on this day.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Right, so the first one, that's from 2007. Second one, 2011. Third one, the brand new one, is a revision of the second one. The second one was a revision of the first one and rewritten. And God, this is getting complicated now. And the third one has been rewritten and has got 27,000 extra words to include the last 13 years. So obviously, small matter of the stadium opening, getting promoted to the Premier League, European Tour, 2 FA Cup semi-finals. Lots of amazing players, some less amazing players, some amazing managers, some less amazing managers, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. I love anything, all the Brighton and Hove Albion content. I just want to consume it all. So the more the merrier. So yeah, bring out a fourth book in 10 years' time once we've won the league. That'd be great. We are going to pick Dan's brain about his wonderful new book as we dive into the podcast. But first of all, Dan, we do have 3 questions that we do like to ask any new guest on the Albion Obsessed podcast. So I'll start with, what was your first Albion game? I know we had a discussion off air about this one, but if you could...
This is a bit frustrating when I've written 3 Albion history books, which are entitled On This Day, which obviously pertains to days in history, and I don't know my first game. My granddad's no longer with us. My uncle can't remember. My dad can't remember. So there's 2 options, I think. The first one was Coventry at home in 1979, because Coventry used to play in an away kit which had a big T, which stood for Talbot, which is a British car manufacturer, which is no longer here. And the T went from shoulder to shoulder and down to the bottom of the kit. And their away kit was brown. So that sticks in the memory. It was either Coventry in 79 or Oxford in the FA Cup third round in 1981, because they filled the northeast corner at the Goldstone and everyone was wearing yellow. And it was just a city yellow. So they're the 2 that I remember. So it could be either one of them. I'm not sure. But I've been going all my life, basically.
Fair enough. We'll go with that. Dagan, talking about shirts, do you want to ask the next one?
I do. So yeah, we always ask, what's your favorite Brighton shirt? How about home and away? I'll let you give 2 options.
My favourite away shirt is probably the Sports Express shirt from the 1991 season, which was tiny little red and white squares, but from a distance it looked pink. And obviously, I used to go to many Albion away games at the time, and we used to get a lot of homophobic abuse, and then we run out in a pink kit. So obviously, it was adding fuel to the fire. I mean, it's ridiculous how backward a lot of grounds were that we used to visit. My favourite home kit, I think it has to be the promotion to the First Division kit in '79, the Buckter kit, which is obviously it's synonymous with Peter Ward and Brian Horton. It's just such a beautiful kit. It was perfect in every way. Even Buckter's logo was effectively a seagull.
Yeah.
So it was perfect, really.
Yeah, that's one that our normal host, Tom, would pick as his favourite Albion shirt of all time. He loves just the straight up stripes everywhere.
Exactly.
No blue blocks anywhere, just stripes. That's what
Yeah.
an Albion kit needs to be.
Absolutely.
And as well, the next question would be: who has been your favourite Albion player of all time up until this point?
Oh, blimey, that's tough. Okay, favourite Albion player, not for being a particularly good player, but just for what he did in a 60-second minute at Hereford on May the 3rd, 1997. It's got to be Mr. Sir Robert Rineout, because without that goal, we wouldn't be sitting here doing a podcast. So we might be talking about, we've just got promoted to the conference. From playing park football, because that's what would have happened if Robbie Rineout hadn't scored that goal at Hereford in '97. Made no bones about it. That's facts. We didn't have a ground. We were bottom of the 4th division. So without that goal, he's my hero. Robbie Rineout is a god in my mind, because I was 10 yards away when that ball hit the back of the net behind the goal. And if you've seen the footage from that game, there was a bloke dressed as a gorilla. There was all sorts of stuff going on behind that goal, and when it went in, it was absolute carnage. Robbie Rineout.
I've spoken to a lot of Albion fans who were there on that day, and they all talk about the moment that goal went in. The ball comes
now. 27 years later, it's still giving me goosebumps.
It's insane because the ball comes off the post.
Yeah,
it could have ricocheted off the keeper's back and gone out for a corner.
Yeah.
But no, it falls into the path of an Albion player. What is that moment like? That 3 seconds of him running up to that ball?
Well, you must have heard about the half-time at Hereford. There's a thread on NSC about it. So half-time, there were a lot of people in tears because a lot of people thought this is it. We were 1-0 down. We were playing very poorly. The crowd was anxious, to put it mildly. So a lot of us were thinking, this is it. This is it. But I'm an optimist when it comes to the Albion. So I was pretty down, but I was like, come on. And you could just feel this. It was such a weird sensation. You could feel the whole crowd going, if we got to get behind them, because this might be the last time we ever watch the Albion play. So let's get behind them. So we got behind them, and their goalkeeper, so in the 62nd minute, a really poor clearance, and then Jeff Minton hoofed it back, and it went really high up in the air. So the defender headed it out. Craig Maskell controlled it on his knee and volleyed it, and it hit the post. So we all went up thinking it had gone in. Like you say, hit the post, went out, and Robbie Rineout got between two defenders and put it in the bottom corner and off the post. And then when it went in, I've never experienced anything like that in my life. It was, honestly, I think I bounced. I could have set a new record for a high jump or a pole vault. Just bounced so high, everyone just went. It's the biggest bundle you've ever seen, and the away end at Hereford had a flat bit at the front. So most away ends, obviously, you've got the seats or the terrace that goes down, then you've got the wall. But we had like a 5-metre bit at the front to basically jump around in when we scored. It was, the relief when I say relief, obviously the full-time whistle hadn't gone. So we had 28 minutes of, if they'd scored, obviously, same thing applies. We would have got relegated. And in the very last minute, their striker was clean through. And I don't know if you've seen the footage of that, but he should have scored. And how he didn't score it's because it was Division 4 football. That's why he didn't score. But what can you say about Hereford? It's been spoken about a million times, and it should always be spoken about because people need to know about it.
Yeah, I never get tired of hearing about it. I'm going to fast forward very, very quickly to the 9 minutes that were added on at the end of the game against Man City. I felt like that was the longest 9 minutes of my life. Those 28 minutes, how do you keep that? How do you keep yourself there, present in that moment? My head would have been on Mars.
It's a collective thing. Obviously, because of that open bit at the front of the terrace, people were wandering around, so you could go off and see different groups of friends. So I travelled with a big group, and there were people dotted all around. So you go up, and they'd sort of give you a hug, going, "Come on, mate." You were just distracting yourself. You were watching the game whilst wandering around, because the time was going so slow. There's 28 minutes. It might as well have been 28 hours or 28 days. It just dragged and dragged and dragged. So we were just trying to keep ourselves occupied, just saying, "Come on, just keep focused. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. We're going to be all right." And that was it. I mean, it was such a weird environment, because it was all or nothing, really. You know, if it had gone the other way, like I said, no Albion.
It's something that I don't want to give too much away about the documentary, because I want people to go and watch it, because it's so important that people do watch it eventually when it comes out, for people that haven't been able to get to the Amex. But I want to talk about, I don't think you can really capture the length of time it took for you guys to fight for this football club, from the day that Belotti, Archer and whoever else took over, to the moment that Dick Knight formed that consortium and battled them long enough for them to finally give him the football club. So can you just sort of like touch on how that affected people around the city, and people that would go to the games, and felt like their football club was being ripped away from them?
Well, first things first, I played a very small part in that, and the main protagonists deserve a mention. So that's Attila Stockbroker, John Bain, Liz Costa, Tim Carter, Paul Welsh, Ed Basford. I think I've met. Yeah, there's a core group of people that are the reason the Albion survived, and they were led by Dick Knight, who, again, without Dick Knight and his stubbornness and his will to win and his will for us to survive, without that, again, no Albion. At the time, when we were at Gillingham, if you saw anyone wearing an Albion shirt in the street, you'd stop and talk to them, because it was such a rare sight. Like, I cannot emphasise to you how far down the Albion were. You know, we're playing home games 80 miles away in front of crowds of 1,500 and bottom of the 4th division. And it was like, we kept going. We all went because we didn't want the club to die. But as a presence in Brighton and Hove, every Sunday, all the pubs would be spilling out of people, all these plastic Man United fans and plastic Liverpool fans, a lot of whom now go to Falmouth, and I don't speak to them. Not interested, sorry. If you couldn't support us when we needed you, then I'm not interested in you supporting us now when we're doing well. Sorry. I don't care what people think about that. That's just me. You know, I lived through it, and it was a tough time, but the people that lived through it as well and stuck with it, they've got nothing but my respect and admiration. But I'm not a fan of glory on this, full stop, to be honest. But yeah, the town was really suffering, because a football club, as we know, is a huge part of the economy. You know, if you want to talk it in financial terms, and obviously the figures that came out this year about the amount that the Albion was worth to the economy. So imagine that being zero, because for 2 years it was. And this is the late 90s, you know, 1997 to 99, there was no Albion in Brighton and Hove. So, you know, there's a lot, it affected the town in many ways. And it was just sad, because a football club brings people together, and when it's not there, you know, there's less focus.
And thinking about that time period as well, you talk about, you know, the people that weren't there to support the Albion when they needed them the most, and could have been there.
Yeah.
And a lot's been said about a lost generation through the period of the Albion at the Withdean, and the fact that we could only get 7,000-8,000 people there. And the reason that we then have more fans at the Amex is because we can get more people in.
Right. Okay.
What's your take on people that say that we did lose generation through Withdean, or do you not?
We did, not completely, but what people have to remember, and I get this all the time, and I know my history, you know, because I've written a couple of books on it. But the fact is, Albion support, if you look at it historically, in the 60s, we were in the 4th division. We got 35,000 against Rochdale in the 4th division. Find me another club that's done that. Sheffield United, that's it. In the 70s, we were in the 3rd division, we were getting 30,000. We got promoted to 2nd division, we were getting 30,000. Got to the 1st division, and our biggest crowd in the 1st division was 28,000, but hooliganism was rife then, and the Golston's capacity had to be a bit less. So we never got 30,000 in the 1st division. So historically, the support is there. Brighton and Hove, there's a lot to do in Brighton and Hove, let's be honest, right? So it's not like towns in the north of England, and I mean this respectfully because I love the north of England, and I love the culture of football in the north of England. But the football club's not more necessarily more important, but the support is higher percentage-wise of the population. And also, Brighton and Hove Albion is a Sussex. We know support is strong around Sussex. So yes, Gillingham, the support was bad. Yes, the last few years of the Golston, the support was bad because the football was bad, the atmosphere was bad, it was toxic, and people turned their backs. Not everyone did, but a lot of people did. With Dean, we sold out quite a few times, but it was an awful place to watch football. I quite liked it in a weird, perverse way, apart from when it rained. So people will use that argument, but my argument is the latent support of the Albion has always been pretty big. So when the ground was built, all my friends that I've been going with all my life were like, do you reckon it'll be big enough? I said, well, to be honest, it probably needs to be more than 20,000 because we'll fill it. I never had any doubt that we'd fill it. And yes, there's going to be 5,000-10,000 maybe people at Falmer that the Albion isn't their first club. But in time, it might become their first club. But it's not more than that. And when people say that it's 50% Arsenal and West Ham fans, sorry, that's rubbish. It's not true.
Fair enough. Dagan, you got something?
Yeah, Dan, I was just going to say, as you were talking and telling the story of the game at Hereford, I had chills, and I obviously wasn't there. I was, 25-ish years away from even knowing the to be quite frank. I'm sure you don't know my story in becoming a fan, but I wouldn't call myself a glory hunter, I hope. But I am new. But what brought me into the fold as a Brighton fan was the story of the club. And it's honestly, for me, it's one of the best sporting stories of any team anywhere that I've ever heard. Right. And it resonated with me. And one of the things I think is going to be interesting about this documentary, about books like yours coming out and more, is that there is going to be a wider group of people that are exposed, not just to Brighton being good in the Premier League right now and the rise of Brighton's success in the very modern sense, but just this long history of the club and then this story of survival that's unparalleled. And again, I'm sure there are others, but for that story to end with, a local kid being a self-made billionaire and buying the club, and then turning it into what it is now, it's mind-blowing and it's inspiring and unlikely. And it's everything that anybody who ever dreamed about, hey, if I stumbled upon a bunch of money, what would I want to do? Is like turn my hometown team into the greatest thing in the world. So what do you say? What do you say to fans like me who are coming in, falling in love with the story that you lived through? Well,
first thing, you're welcome. You're more than welcome as part of the Albion family, obviously. And I'm proud of the fact that, we've got an American on an Albion podcast who supports the Albion because of the story behind the Albion. I mean, that's amazing. What I just said, I know I've ranted a little bit then about plastic fans. What I've got, just to clarify this, so when the Albion were dying, because make no mistake, we were dying, and you've got people my age, so I'm 51 now, so they would have been in their 20s when we were dying, and they're sitting in a pub on a Sunday screaming at a screen for a club 200 miles away when their local club is dying and they need people through the turnstiles. They need people to fight for them. They need people to be fans of their local club, right? And then they stop going to the pub as often on a Sunday and they come to the Albion because there's enough room, right? And then they take our glory, sort of just forgetting casually that they actually support another club. That's what I don't like, because it's not theirs, it's ours. Right? We fought for it, it's ours, we've earned it. And if you do want to be an Albion fan, you're more than welcome. but you've got to say goodbye to your previous allegiance. Because I've turned a handful of Man United fans into proper Albion fans, and I'm really proud of that. I did brainwash them, obviously, but now they love it, and they sit in my group at Falmer, and it never gets mentioned now because they're Albion fans now. So I'm proud of Japanese supporters as well. Yeah, we had a couple of Japanese supporters in our group. There was some spare tickets. They came and sat with us and was, "Oh, welcome to the Albion." They go, "Oh, we love it." I mean, it makes me so proud because that's the whole point of football, right? So when I go up north or Europe supporting the Albion, I'm an ambassador for the Albion. So if I meet anyone and they want to talk about football, I'll talk about the Albion in such exalted terms because I'm proud. And we're all ambassadors for the club. That's what being a football fan's about, right? So,
Thank you. That's a great clarification. That's what I thought you meant. That was like what was underpinning what you said before. But I think it's good to clarify because I know we have a lot of listeners who are more like me, who have come to the club, new. And I think there's a question of like, where do we fit in? And there's this, everyone's welcome. Yeah, of course. But I understand the point that you're making about sort of fair weather fans that had the opportunity to be there. And
it's an age thing as well. Don't forget, I'm 51, so like Joe's age, it's very different. I don't know how old you are, Dagan. 29? 46. Blimey. that was very complimentary for me, wasn't it? Sorry.
Here, I'll take it.
Well, I would have said you were 45. So, but anyway, it's all about age. So if you're 51 and then you've been an Albion fan for 5 years, it's like people don't. I mean, obviously you're abroad, it's different. And from what Joe tells me, you were sort of you were having an interest in English football, and then you discovered the Albion. I mean, let's be honest, most people who are in the States in their 40s looking at football, they'll go for Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, predictable. They might win something. Boring. You're just a number. It's like there's millions of them. But if you become an Albion fan and you're now doing podcasts, after how many years have you been a fan?
I started 2022, the beginning of
right, and you're now doing podcasts, right? That on a level with us. You're an Albion fan, so that's it. You're on a level.
No, exactly that. Now, Dan, I want to pick your brains about a certain Chelsea fan who goes on Sky Sports and talks.
Glad you said that.
Now he says that we are a two-bob side with no history.
Do you know what,
Dan,
mate?
I'll give you the floor.
I would love to be on a podcast with him because he's not going to watch this probably, but if he wants to have a war of words about football and about the Albion and about Chelsea, bring it on, because I've got retorts for everything that he said. So no history, yeah, okay, mate. It's not all about winning. So that's the key thing. If you think football's all about winning, then good luck to you, because I don't. Football's about community. It's about belonging. It's about being part of something bigger than yourself, and it's special, right? If you just think football is about winning trophies, and hang on, so how long have Chelsea been winning trophies? Since someone put £2 billion in because they went to Chelsea instead of Tottenham, because they were going to go to Tottenham first and ended up going to Chelsea as a second option. That's the only reason. Chelsea in the early 90s got 7,500 for a Premier League game against Southampton. 7,500. Big club, eh? Massive club. So we're not too big. We've got a history. Our history's rich because of what we've been through to get to where we are now. That's rich. Without the money side of it, it's rich. And it's got so many layers to it. Stand or fall shows that. And then you've got some nouveau riche football fan who knows, I'm not going to swear, about football. And he's got a voice because social media gives people like this a voice, and we're reacting to it. The best thing to do, Joe, for all of us is just to ignore him. Because empty vessels make the most noise, right?
No, true.
He's clueless.
And I think as well, the more this club continues to do well, is the more that it's just going to rub it in his face and say, we might be too bob to you, mate, but we're here to compete. We're not here to make up the numbers. We've gone through what we've gone through, and we've risen from the very, very depths of what could have happened. And another question I had for you a little bit earlier on is that people sort of dance around, oh, well, Brighton could have gone out of business. They might have died. From your perspective, what would have happened to the Albion had we not equalised?
Okay, if Robbie Ryan didn't have his shooting boots on that day and Hereford had won, so I remember about a week after the Hereford game, group of lads had a meeting in Worthing and I was on the phone in Brighton, and it was a fanzine meeting to set up Scars and Stripes. So we agreed that our number one aim was to help the club get back to Brighton. So we do the fanzine as long as it took for that to happen, which is basically what we did. So 3 years. And we wanted to galvanise the support. So if Hereford had gone the wrong way and we got relegated out of the league, we probably would have gone bust. But one thing definitely would have happened is the Albion would have come AFC Brighton and Albion, AFC Brighton and Hove, or the Albion would have been resurrected because there were far too many people that would not let it die. So we probably would have done what AFC Wimbledon did. Probably pretty similar to that. It would have been Preston Park instead of Wimbledon Common, for the first training sessions that they had. But thankfully, we don't have to think about that too much. But the Albion would still exist. There would be a club representing Brighton and Hove that play in blue and white stripes in some way, shape or form. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah. As you say, we don't have to think about it, and it is terrifying to think what could have happened. And the fact that, as I said to you off air, we were watching a documentary about this club rising from where it's risen from, coming back home, having to play at an athletics track, and fighting for this state-of-the-art stadium. And now we're watching a feature-length documentary, but we're watching that in the state-of-the-art stadium that you guys fought so hard for. It's just, it was spine-tingling stuff. And yeah, it was a credit to what you guys have gone through. And I thank you guys. And I know you say there's people that fought for it, not more than you did, but people that were bigger in the grand scheme of things. But even you guys are just as important. And I am so grateful to everyone.
It's amazing for you to say that. I mean, like I said, you would have done the same thing. Dagan, you would have done the same thing. Like, I think most fans of clubs would have done the same thing because that's the human spirit, right? I suppose the advantage that we had was Dick Knight and the team that formed, the BSIT, the Brighton Independent Sports Association, Attila's group. There's like the people I mentioned, there's Konstantin Carter. Those people are just, they should be immortalised somewhere because without them. So Joe, I appreciate what you say about thanking me. I mean, like I said, I was a tiny part of it. There was about 1,000 or so of us that were, the foot soldiers for the people that I've mentioned. And, they deserve, I mean, for me, they're my heroes. I learned a lot working with them, working on various projects to save the club. Like, all the innovations that came about were just ridiculous. Like, just like the creativity of some of the protests, and it was just incredible. It was absolutely incredible. It was a fascinating time to be a fan because you couldn't get bored because it's, right, what are we going to do this week? Right, so we're going to I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll go to Downing Street with a van load of flowers from all 92 clubs or 91 clubs, and we'll present them to the Prime Minister, and on each of them it'll say, like, we don't let the Albion die, lots of love Luton Town, don't let the Albion die, lots of love Hartlepool United, stuff like that. I was walking around Trafalgar Square with Paul Camlin with bouquets of flowers because we didn't want to waste them. So we were going up to random people going, "Oh, good afternoon, hope you're well. Would you like a bouquet of flowers from Brighton and Hove Albion?" Because it's Valentine's Day. So we're going up, all the things that we've done. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. But,
I mean, as we've said, we do, no matter what anybody says, or no matter what anybody tells us, we do have an incredibly rich history. And that's why I find your book so incredible, is that you can think back to a player, a moment, a day, like the best day of my life, sporting life, I will say, because I am married. So obviously my wedding was the best day of my life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Saved myself there, didn't I? And my daughter was born. That was
Yeah.
also the best day of my life. Best sporting day of my life was the 17th of April 2017 when we got promoted to the Premier League. When I could watch the joy on my dad's face, the joy on my mum's face, the joy on my granddad's face, the people that had sinned and been affected by what happened in 97. For 20 years later, for that emotion to spill out into a journey that would see us reach Europe, beat Man City 2-1 a couple of weeks ago. I mean, yeah, just incredible. And I love the fact that you can, get this book, you can flick through it and you can relive the memories, because every time I see a Brighton result, the memories are in my head. It's not just a score line on a piece of paper. It's not just a score line on the internet. It's memories. So I do really strongly recommend people to go and check this book out. Go to the link in the description, buy it. Is it sold at the Albion Club shop as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 weeks time, when you go down there to the Southampton game, pick yourself up a copy, and relive memories.
If I may be so bold, which I've actually written in my, Blue Sky, the new Twitter thing. I wrote in my bio about, lifelong Albion fan. I've written a book, if I may be so bold, that should be on every Albion fan's bookshelf. So I've used that line again. If you want a signed copy with a personalised message for your dad, your mum, your brother, your sister, your husband, your wife, go on eBay or go to englishfootballbooks.com, go to the Albion page. There's also other Albion books on there as well to support my fellow Albion writers. But my one's at the top because englishfootballbooks.com is my website as well, handily. So, if you want a signed copy, go there and just email me through email and I can sort one out for you.
Perfect. As I say, strongly recommend people go and pick one up. And even better, you get a signed copy from the man himself. Dagan, you've got a question.
I've got a two-parter, Dan, and I hope this isn't too big of a preview for the book. But beware the Ides of March, right? This particular date on the calendar. Is there for Brighton fans, as you've looked through the history, a particular calendar day that we should be wary of because of a dark history? And similarly, and maybe we exclude May 3rd, I don't know. But is there a date on which we should be very optimistic because we have a long history performing well?
God, blimey, that's a question. I haven't prepped for that at all. I'm very fortunate to have Tim Carter's Albion database on a spreadsheet. So I've got every Albion game in history on an Excel spreadsheet, so I can search for. So another time, if you like, I can come back and give you a definitive answer of our most successful date, although it took me ages to work it out, but I'm sure I can do it. So obviously we got May the 21st, 1983, FA Cup final. June the 24th, I've got to check I've got that right, because if I can't get that wrong, the formation of the club in 1901, I haven't got my glasses on. It's June anyway, in 1901. January, so the thing with the book, obviously, because it's dates, January is FA Cup third and fourth rounds. And for the majority of our history, the FA Cup gave us the most excitement because we had 38 years in Division 3 South with no promotion or relegation from 1920 to 1958. So the FA Cup has provided us with a lot of history to write about. Obviously, the last 13 years, I could have done an on this day just for that, to be honest with you. But I wanted fans to go right back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 months in the history library when I wrote the first edition, going through all Albion books, picking out stuff, because I didn't want it to just be this player was born in this place, they played this many times for the Albion, then they died, this match happened. I wanted a bit more colour to it. So can I tell you what my favourite bit is in the book?
Please.
So Major Carlo Campbell was our chairman in the 30s, 30s, 40s, I think. He tried to introduce cheetah racing to the country instead of greyhound racing. And he imported 6 cheetahs to start a new fad of cheetah racing. But the cheetahs they were fast, but they weren't interested in racing. So it failed. So that's pretty random, right? So I wanted to try and incorporate things that are a little bit more interesting connected with the club. You know, like Maradona, when Maradona was rumoured to be taken over in the early 2000s. Do you know about that?
I've heard about it in passing, but
the Argus ran a headline. So imagine this: you're walking past a shop and it says Maradona interested in. Oh, what? So obviously, I went in and bought a copy. So he was rumoured to be in a consortium that was going to take over the club. Obviously, it didn't happen. But
mad. So if you want all of those amazing facts about the club as well, then definitely pick up a copy. I mean, Dagon's eyes lit up. I don't know if you've seen Dagon online at all, but Dagon is our stat man on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And he comes up with numbers that I wouldn't ever think exist. So the fact that you said you've got every Albion game ever on an Excel spreadsheet, Dagon was very, very happy about.
I'm not sure if I should have, because Tim has asked me, and he's absolutely right, not to share it, and I will honour Tim as our historian and absolute Albion legend. But I'm a stato as well, and just obviously when he sent me that, I was like, oh my god, how many times have we won 4-3? And then you can search it, and it's phenomenal.
So yeah, that's amazing.
My particular brand of nerdery for sure. That sounds like a lot of fun. I need to know Tim, I guess.
I'll ask Tim for you.
So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna throw some dates at you, some players at you, if you want to throw us some interesting things that might be in there. So I'm gonna throw you my birthday first, the 30th of November.
Oh, it's coming up. Okay. 30th of November. Apologies for my glasses that are coming on. 30th of November. We've got 3. Oh, look at this. Saturday, 30th of November 1901. Albion enjoyed their first meeting with a team destined to become a fellow Football League side as Fulham were the visitors to the county ground. Clem Barker and Frank McAvoy scored the goals to take the Southern League points in front of 1,900 fans. This one's not quite so good. Actually, I alluded to this earlier, Joe. Saturday, the 30th of November 1996. Another day, another protest. This time, London was the location as around 800 Albion fans marched from Victoria Station to Marble Arch to deliver a 5,726 name petition to the FA calling for Chairman Bill Archer and Chief Executive David Bellotti to be charged with misconduct likely to bring the game into disrepute. A few hours later, Albion lost 2-0 at Craven Cottage. There you go.
Amazing.
Sorry, I've just realised how bad my glasses look there. Blimey.
So, Dan, what you've just done there for me is you just ruined my first birthday.
Is that your first birthday?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it would have been 96. Yeah, 95 I was born, so goodness me.
That was quite a surreal day, marching through London to protest about the Albion. Yeah, we got some really weird looks that day. But yeah, Victoria Station to Lancaster Gate.
How long of a walk's that?
It took about, I can't really remember, about half an hour, I think. I got interviewed underneath a tree opposite Lancaster Gate in a park, and someone was doing the devil's horns behind me for the whole interview. You know when you do that? So they didn't use it, as they told me afterwards.
Dagon, what's your birth?
That's where I was going. I've got to know. May 14th. That's like right at the end of the season, I would expect. So I don't know how much.
I'll do this one from the actual paper as opposed to reading it off the screen.
All right.
May the 14th. May the 14th. There should be quite a few for that. Yeah, you got 4. When were you born?
78.
Okay.
Old man.
14th of May 1977, Peter Ward scored his last league goal of the season to complete a tally of 32 and 36 in all competitions, a record likely never to be beaten. 14th of May 1983, the prolific Chris Roden arrived in Sussex after scoring 99 times for Pontedale Athletic. over 3 seasons in the Welsh League. Already relegated, the Welshman came on with 15 minutes remaining of the Albion's final first division encounter, a 2-1 defeat at Norwich City. Oh, this is another campaigning one. Right, Friday the 14th of May 1998, BHA, Bring Home the Albion, campaign spokesman Adrian Newnham handed in a 32,355 signature document in support of the Albion's bid to use Withdean Stadium as a temporary home to Lord Bassam, leader of Brighton Hove Council, outside Brighton Town Hall, in 16 binders. There you go.
That's awesome.
I mean, Christmas is coming, people. If you want to sit around on Christmas Day and just throw random dates, random players out and just talk about incredible memories, or not, bittersweet memories, now we can think back to what that meant for this football club, then all the more reason to pick this book up. Dan, I want to ask you, because we will fast forward to modern day.
Yep.
2 weeks ago, we beat Manchester City. Is it 2 weeks ago? A week ago, we beat Manchester City 2-1 at the Amex. I mean, it's not the first time, which is amazing to say. How does that make you people feel? The people that saw this club at the very, very depths of hell come through to be, spoken about wanting Champions League football. That's just crazy.
I think the main thing for me with the Albion being in the Premier League and it's our 8th season, and the fact that we're obviously very well run, we're in incredibly safe hands, is when people, I'm not going to dig anyone out, but when people, if we don't, at the end of the day, we're playing the best football in our history. We've got the best squad in our history. This could be the best season in our history. So you weigh those things up, and beating Manchester City was absolutely glorious. It was wonderful. I mean, the intake of breath before O'Reilly's goal. Have you seen the clip where everyone goes and then goes nuts? It's just, it's poetry, isn't it? Let's be honest. But a lot of people now, because of social media, North Stand Chat, I'm not blaming North Stand Chat because North Stand Chat is brilliant. But when people moan, not about the Man City game, but people have been moaning this season about, when we were out of possession, this, for crying out loud. If you can't enjoy what we're at now, then you shouldn't be watching football. You should go home and kick your cat or something, because you need to get that out somewhere else, because we are the best we've ever been. And what a ride. I mean, the Man City game, all of us, all the lads I go with, who've been going together for 30 years, just sat in the pub afterwards, what can you say? We just beat the four times champions. And my friends who are Man City fans from back when they were rubbish, which was a similar time to when we were really rubbish, they were with us in the concourse after the game. They were like, fair play to you. I'm like, that's proper football supporters right there that can come in after being beaten and saying, well played, that was great game. Do you know what I mean? Instead of sulking off home, which other people who support other clubs have done. That's proper football people. Man City get a lot of stick, but their away support are predominantly the people that went when they were rubbish, and they're proper football people like us.
Yeah, I love Man City fans because they took me under their wing so not all of them, obviously, but a group of them took me under their wing. I was travelling back from the FA Cup semi-final in 2019, and I was travelling back by myself because my mum was going onwards to her holiday. So she was driving to Norwich. I was getting the train back to Sussex. I don't know why Man City fans were getting the train back to Sussex. Maybe they had the hotel booked. But I was like terrified because I'm riddled with anxiety. I hate traveling places by myself. And I was like surrounded. It was on the way back from Wembley to like a central London station. And they were just so lovely to me. And they were so complimentary, and they were, just talking about, like, as you say, when they were rubbish and the fact that it's not been an easy ride for them. And to see that they were so rich with a history where they've been humbled, it got me thinking back then. Obviously, we were under Chris Hughton and we weren't having the best time in the Premier League at that point. But it made you think, like, clubs can rise and succeed. So it's not such a surprise that Brighton are doing well and can do well and can continue to do well. But I guess, as you say, we've just got to enjoy it whilst it's here.
I mean, Tony's been quoted as saying there's no glass ceiling, because obviously that was one of Poyet's lines towards the end of his tenure. But honestly, there is no limit to what we can achieve, because time and time again we keep proving. The squad we've got, like the bench against Man City, the players on the bench, I'm like, oh my God, they would walk into most Premier League sides. The players on the bench. So I get a bit carried away with Albion-related things just because I get excited, and maybe that's my inner child, I don't know. But my mate who I sit next to, I've been going with since I was 16. He's quite a realist when it comes to the Albion, and I'm an optimist. I always think we're going to win, and I told him we were going to beat Man City 2-1. Okay, I can say it now in hindsight. I've got that right. But I really genuinely believe that we are in the title race, and I'm now saying this on the public forum, which is going to be on the internet forever. So hopefully in May, when we finish runners-up, then people can come back and watch. Imagine if we finish runners-up.
It would be incredible.
I need to calm down.
Before we sign off the podcast, from a guy that's seen it all, from a guy that's been involved in a lot of Albion media and writing a book, what is your bold prediction for the Albion in the next 5 or 10 seasons? Give us a bold
realistic one, or do you want my blue and white striped spectacle one?
Let's go for the spectacle one.
I'm going to sound. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say it. I really think that top 4 is realistic because of things I've already said, and because we've got Tony at the helm and we've got Paul Barber doing a cracking job overseeing the rest of the football operations. The squad is incredible, and moving forward for the next 5-10 years, am I going to say this one? I think we could push for the title. There you go, I've said it. I really think that we could, because of all of the things that are in place, the support, and when people rubbish the atmosphere, I'm a firm believer and supporter of organic atmospheres that are determined by what happens on the pitch. So if stuff on the pitch is getting the crowd, look at the crowd against Man City in the second half. That is proof. Yeah, the atmosphere can be flat, but if the game's flat, that's reflected in the crowd. And it will take an incident, like a corner or a free kick, a bad tackle. I don't want to go to a game where I've got 90 minutes of an incessant drone, because for me, that's dull. I don't like it. But that's just my personal opinion. But I think with all everything's in the right place, when the fans get behind the players like they did against Man City, we can beat anyone, and we've proven that. If we can do that on the road, basically, I'm going to book an open-top bus in case it gets taken by someone else for when we do the victory parade in May for the title. So I've not had a drink. Honestly, I'm completely sober. I'm just getting excited at the thought of what we can achieve.
I just want to offer to you, Dan. I really believe the optimists among us are becoming the realists.
Oh, okay.
The realists are becoming pessimists, because the trajectory that I observed and brought in part along with the story brought me here is that what you're talking about is the natural conclusion of the work that's been done heretofore. It's I know it seems impossible. Leicester, I'm sure, seemed impossible. But there is some parity. There is some increasing parity that I think is going to open doors. And we're seeing it this year. And we didn't just beat City.
No.
We had 6 big chances in the second half. 6. I've now looked back, Joe. I looked back 2 last week. I've looked back 3 years. City hasn't given up more than 6 big chances in any entire match in any competition in the last 3 seasons.
Wow.
So, to do that to them, really with the first time having even close to a full-ish squad, and we're still not all there, the limit, you're right, the limit there's none. There's no glass ceiling. There's no limit on what this team can accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years. There's no limit on what we can accomplish this year.
Well, you got to remember about Leicester, when Leicester won the league, it's my favourite football moment other than Albion related things ever, because it was so unexpected. It was basically the stars aligned. They nearly went down the year before. They won a winning run from the previous season. They had a bloke they plucked from non-league who had something to prove. They got Kante and Mahrez. They had a brilliant manager. The other teams at the top had a couple of them had bad seasons. So everything has to align, and it is possible. Yeah, we did spend a lot of money in the summer, but that's because we earned a lot of money. That's the way it should be. So if you earn the money, you spend it on players, right? That makes sense. That's the model of football, how it's always been. You sell a few players for X amount of money, or you get big crowds, you use that money, you buy players. It's not some bloke's not just got off a plane and gone, there's £2 billion. So we've done it the right way. So whatever success we get is deserved because, yes, Tony did lend us the money for the stadium, but so what? Do you know what I mean? He's going to get it back, and I hope he does. I really hope he gets it back. But it's interest-free. That's what someone who cares about something does. It was just the money for the stadium. The rest of it, all right, yeah, he's put money in since, but it's not huge amounts. It's realistic amounts.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's something that a lot of opposition fans take joy in telling us that, oh, well, your owner's giving you this much money. It's like, yeah, but look at who our owner is.
Yeah, exactly.
And listen to what he's said about it. So, yeah, it's just what an incredibly exciting time to be a fan. Days are burning.
Dan, on behalf of newcomers like me, and I'm sure lots of young folks, just to anyone of your era who grew up with the club, you've literally written the story down, but that's only because you wrote such a big portion of the story that there is to tell through your deeds, through your actions, through your support of the club. So from me to you, thank you sincerely, because the club wouldn't be where it is without the people that dug in when you dug in and those you've named. So thank you.
Well, that's amazing. I'm quite humbled by that. But like I said, it's the leaders of that time that deserve the credit, because they're the ones that galvanised the support, that came up with the ideas, that went to the meetings, that did all the official difficult stuff. The foot soldiers, which I was part of. I mean, yeah, I did set up a fanzine, Scars and Stripes, and we played. I'd like to think we played a pretty big part. Like we used to go on the pitch at Gillingham and give Dick Knight comedy-sized checks, with our proceeds. We sit in the pub counting up the pound coins. We have big stacks of pound coins. Then we go to the bank, get a comedy check, give it to Dick, the next week sort of thing. But the main protagonists, in my mind, their names should never, like I said, I'll say it again, just to be Paul Samra, Liz Costa, John Bain, Attila Stockbroker, Tim Carter, Sarah Watts, Roy Shooter, Paul Welsh. Heroes, absolute heroes. They're the people they're the names that everyone needs to know, because they're the reason you got a club to support.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing that the Albion Obsessed podcast has always tried to do since its beginning in 2021 was to beat the drum of where this football club has come from. We've spoken to incredible people. We've spoken to Attila the Stockbroker. We've spoken to Dick Knight. There was a two-parter with Dick Knight because, my goodness me, that man can talk. We were sat with him for 3 hours, and it was one of the best 3 hours of my life. Like, just to hear about him, his part in what made this football club what it is today. And the guys like you, Dan, the foot soldiers, as you say, and all the other names you mentioned, we will always bang the drum of why that part of our history will always be important to whatever we do next.
Do you know what? Like I said to you earlier about obviously, I'm quite a bit older than you, Joe, and effectively we're a different generation. But the fact that you and Dagan have said that about, my ilk, it's quite a humbling thing, because you don't hear it that often, because a lot of the younger support almost deride what we went through and what we did without seeing the irony of that division, because it's like, well, that's the reason you got a club to support. And yeah, we don't want to bang on about it too much, because the present is much more fascinating than the past, because we are on a trajectory like that. But the past is why we're here now, and that's why it's more special because of what we've been through. So people have got to always know that. And I will talk till I'm blue and white in the face to anyone who will listen about what happened, because I lived through it, and those of us did. And it was an amazing time. It wasn't all bad. You got to remember that, you know, it was exciting. A lot of it was exciting because it was different. We'd never experienced anything like that before. And it's like, right, we're going to save our club. And, you know, we did save our club, and it took a long time to get founded, but we did it. So, you know, that should be celebrated.
Absolutely. We will continue to celebrate the success of this football club that has been built on the foundations of where we come from. Dan, if you just want to tell our listeners and viewers again where they can go and buy this incredible book.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, so thanks very much. Thanks for having me. The book is Brighton of Albion on this day. It's available from EnglishFootballBooks.com. Go to the Albion section. Other Albion books are available on there too. Through the links on there, you can get a signed copy via eBay. You can buy it through Waterstones, or you can buy it on Amazon. Amazon is also around Europe and in the States. Hopefully that works. Not hinting at you, Dagan, to buy a book from Amazon, but yeah, it should. Yeah, so you can get it from those places, and it should be available in the club shop in Churchill Square and at the stadium before Christmas.
Wonderful. Well, thank you ever so much for joining us on the podcast today, Dan. It's been very, insightful, and I hope people go out and buy this book. As I say, link in the description. Do what Dan says, because if you don't, he'll come and find you. I've been told. No, I'm joking. But the Albion continue their Premier League journey next week as they travel to Bournemouth, who are doing all right. And let's hope that we can make sure that they don't do all right next weekend. But until then, we will see you on the next episode. Wherever you may be, whenever you may be, we will see you very soon. Take care.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan. Cheers, everybody.